I never thought my life would unravel over a lukewarm cup of coffee on a rainy Wednesday morning. Sitting at the kitchen counter, my phone in one hand, I scrolled through emails, only half listening to my wife, Sophia, as she rambled on about some charity event she was organizing for the weekend. Her voice had a polished enthusiasm, like an actress delivering a rehearsed line. "Are you even listening, Ethan?" she snapped, tossing an irritated glance over her shoulder. I glanced up. She was by the sink, rinsing a wine glass. A wine glass. At 8 a.m. That struck me as odd. Yeah. Something about hosting it at Claire's house, I muttered, still staring at my phone. She turned sharply, her honey-blonde ponytail whipping over her shoulder. "No. At Adrian's house," she corrected, her tone clipped. "Would it kill you to pay attention for once?" That's when I felt it. A flicker of something wrong. A slight tension in her voice. An impatience that didn't match the words. Like a badly rehearsed lie. For weeks, I had noticed the little things. Subtle absences. A sudden obsession with her appearance. Her phone always face down on the table. The way she had started locking her screen, even when she was just going to the bathroom. I had brushed it off before. After all, everyone deserves a little self-care, right? But something about the way she said Adrian's name dug under my skin like a splinter. I let it go. For now. Later that afternoon, I was in the garage, working on an old Mustang GT I had been restoring for months. The familiar scent of motor oil and metal calmed my nerves as I tightened a bolt under the hood. Then my phone buzzed. "Sophia, staying late at work. Don't wait up for dinner." I wiped my hands on a rag, staring at the message. That uneasy feeling from earlier returned, settling like a weight in my stomach. Work? Sophia worked part-time at an upscale boutique in downtown Seattle. She had never stayed late. Alone, the text might not have meant much. But combined with everything else, the secrecy, the shift in her behavior, the name Adrian floating around my mind like a dark cloud, it felt like another piece of a puzzle I didn't even realize I was solving. Curiosity gnawed at me. I went inside, wiped my hands clean, and picked up her tablet. Sophia wasn't tech-savvy. She had forgotten to log out of her email. And that's when I saw it. At first, it was nothing, just the usual casual exchanges between her and Adrian. Then I scrolled further. And I hit the motherlode. Plans for secret meetups. Whispered confessions. And one line that seared itself into my brain. "Ethan's too naive to notice. He's just a grease monkey." My breath caught. My hands trembled as I scrolled further. A weekend trip. 2 months ago. The same weekend she had told me she was visiting her sister in San Francisco. My jaw tightened as nausea churned in my gut. My wife. The woman I had built a life with. The woman I had trusted. She wasn't just cheating. She was mocking me behind my back. The red haze of pure fury clouded my vision. I slammed the tablet onto the counter. The screen cracked from the force. A part of me wanted to storm over to Adrian's house, rip him out by his collar, and let my fists do the talking. But another part of me, colder, more calculating, held me back. This wasn't just about an affair. Something deeper was going on. I needed answers. And for now? I needed to play dumb. That night, Sophia walked through the door like nothing had happened. "Hey, babe." She leaned in to kiss my cheek. I studied her. Her makeup was freshly reapplied. Her hair was brushed into soft waves. Not the look of someone exhausted from work. "Dinner okay?" she asked, pulling off her coat. "Yeah. Heated up leftovers," I said, my tone neutral. "Good. I'm exhausted." She stretched, letting out a fake yawn. I clenched my jaw but forced myself to stay calm. There was no point in confronting her yet. Not until I had more leverage. As she disappeared into the bedroom, I reached for my phone. And did something I never thought I would do. I started recording everything. Calls. Conversations. Even her movements around the house. If Sophia wanted to play dirty, I'd beat her at her own game. That night, as she lay beside me pretending to sleep, I stared at the ceiling, my mind replaying every lie, every deception. But the worst part? It wasn't just the affair. It was the sheer disrespect. She thought I was too stupid. Too blind. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger. She was wrong. I wasn't just a mechanic. Sophia had no idea who she was messing with. The next morning, my plan was already forming. I wasn't going to let anger cloud my judgment. I wasn't just going to confront her and listen to more of her lies. I wanted the truth. And if she wasn't willing to hand it over, I'd rip it out of her world of deceit myself. Sophia was already up, sipping coffee as she scrolled through her phone. A ghost of a smirk played on her lips. Probably texting Adrian. "Morning," I said casually, pouring myself a cup. "Morning," she replied, barely looking at me. "I'm working on the Mustang again today. You think you'll be around?" She paused for half a second before answering. "Nope. I have errands. Hair appointment, groceries, you know the drill." Too quick. Too rehearsed. I forced a smile. Busy woman. She finally looked up. And the look she gave me? Pure disdain. "Someone has to keep this house running, Ethan." I clenched my fists under the table. She had no idea what was coming. The moment Sophia's car pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. I had spent the night researching how to track someone without being detected. With a little help from a GPS tracker I had ordered on rush delivery, I was now ready to follow her every move. I stepped outside, slipped the tiny magnetic device under the rear bumper of her car, then returned to my truck. Parked a few houses down. And waited. It didn't take long. Her first stop. A hotel on the other side of Seattle. The Sterling Plaza. One of those mid-range boutique hotels. The kind of place you go when you want discretion, when you don't want to be seen. I followed, keeping my distance, my heartbeat steady. I parked a few lots away. Watched as she pulled into a secluded corner of the lot. And right next to her, Adrian's car. A newer model BMW, the same one he bragged about at barbecues. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. It was one thing to see texts and emails. But to see it in front of me? That was a whole different kind of rage. I waited. For what felt like an eternity. Watching the hotel entrance like a hawk. Then, they emerged. Laughing. Talking. Smiling. Sophia clung to Adrian's arm, her head tilted back in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not with me, anyway. They looked like two lovers on a honeymoon, not two people sneaking around. I pulled out my phone. Snapped pictures. Captured every detail. The way his hand rested on her lower back. The way she whispered something in his ear, making him smirk. This wasn't just an affair. This was a full-blown relationship. Right under my nose. When they drove off together, I tailed them at a safe distance. They went to a small cafe, one of those hidden spots where no one would recognize them. I parked a few spots away. And watched. They sat in a cozy corner booth. Leaning into each other. Sipping coffee like they hadn't just spent hours in a hotel room together. Then, Sophia's phone buzzed on the table. I could see it light up from my truck. Her expression changed instantly. She glanced at Adrian. He gave her a reassuring nod. Whatever they were planning, it wasn't good. That evening, when Sophia walked through the front door, her face glowed like she'd just had the best day of her life. "How were the errands?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Fine," she said quickly, dropping her bag on the counter. "Exhausting, though. I think I'll turn in early." "Long day, huh?" I pressed, watching her carefully. She paused for a fraction of a second. Then smiled. "Yeah. Non-stop." I let it go. Pretended to drop it. But the moment she disappeared into the bedroom, I grabbed her bag. And started rifling through it. Buried under her wallet and receipts, I found a key card. For the Sterling Plaza Hotel. My pulse pounded in my ears. Sophia had no idea I had been tracking her every move. She wasn't going to come clean on her own. That night, I barely slept. Every lie. Every moment of betrayal. It all played on repeat in my head. But one thought haunted me more than the affair itself: why? Why Adrian? Why now? There had to be more to this than just sex. And I was going to find out exactly what it was. The next day, while Sophia was out of the house, I made a phone call. To someone who owed me a favor. "Nick, it's me." A brief pause. Then a low chuckle. Well. Haven't heard that voice in years. "What's up, Ethan?" Nick Dawson wasn't just an old friend. He was a former intelligence analyst. Someone who could dig up dirt on anyone, anywhere. "I need everything you can find on Adrian Wells." "Wells? That your cheating wife's new boy toy?" "Something like that." Nick sighed. "All right. Give me an hour." While I waited, I dug through Sophia's phone records. She had no idea I had cloned her number weeks ago. And what I found sent a chill down my spine. Multiple calls to a burner phone. Short calls. Always under 2 minutes. My phone buzzed. Nick was calling back. "You're not gonna like this," he said. "Tell me anyway." Nick exhaled. Adrian Wells isn't just some sleazebag suburban neighbor. He's got a sealed military file. And only the really bad ones get those. I gritted my teeth. "Go on." "He's tied to 2 accidental deaths in the last 5 years. Both women. And here's the best part, he's completely broke. Maxed out credit cards. Second mortgage. Filed for bankruptcy last year." My fingers tightened around my phone. "So, what's his angle?" Nick hesitated. "He's not just cheating with your wife, Ethan." "What do you mean?" "I mean, he's using her." "For what?" Nick's voice turned grim. "You ever heard of a honey trap?" My stomach dropped. A honey trap, a scheme where someone seduces and manipulates their target before setting them up for something worse. Blackmail. Extortion. Or worse, murder. "Sophia's been running this play for years," Nick said. "She lures men in. Makes them trust her. Then Adrian takes care of the rest." I sat in stunned silence. Sophia hadn't just cheated on me. She had targeted me. My whole marriage had been a setup from the start. I clenched my fists. The rage was boiling over now. "Thanks, Nick. I owe you." "Oh, you owe me big time," he said. "Now, tell me, what's your next move?" I exhaled slowly. Then I smiled. I set my own trap. That night, I sent Sophia a text. We need to talk. Meet me at the cabin." "Sophia, why? What's wrong?" 8 p.m. Don't be late." The cabin was a secluded place in the woods. And what she didn't know. I had rigged it with cameras, traps, and surprises. If Adrian or anyone else tried to ambush me there, they'd be walking straight into hell. Sophia thought she had everything under control. She thought she could outsmart me. But by the time the night was over, she'd realized just how wrong she was. Sophia texted back almost immediately. Sophia, fine. I'll be there. No hesitation. No excuses. She knew something was wrong. But she had no idea what was waiting for her. By the time night fell, the rain had started again, turning the winding roads to the cabin into slick, treacherous paths. I parked my truck out of sight behind a dense line of trees. Checked the cameras I had installed earlier, motion sensors, hidden surveillance, even a few pressure-triggered surprises. If Adrian, or anyone else, was planning something, they were going to walk right into my playing field. At exactly 8 p.m., headlights cut through the darkness. Sophia's car pulled into the small clearing outside the cabin. She stepped out, umbrella in one hand, phone in the other. Her face was a mask of concern. Fake concern. She was acting, probably rehearsing her lies on the drive over. Good. She still thought she could talk her way out of this. She was dead wrong. I was waiting for her inside, the cabin dimly lit. The single wooden table in the center of the room. A chair already pulled out for her. I didn't smile. Didn't say a word. Just pointed. Sit. She hesitated. Then obeyed. Her eyes darted around, scanning the room. Looking for an escape. What is this, Ethan? She asked, her voice smooth, careful. You tell me, I said, crossing my arms. Then, without breaking eye contact, I picked up my phone and hit play. The video projected onto the screen behind me. The warehouse meeting. Her and Adrian. Talking about accelerating the plan. The words echoed through the silent cabin. Her entire body went stiff. For the first time, true fear flickered in her eyes. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered. Then explain it to me, I said, my voice cold. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Then, her face hardened. The fear vanished. And for the first time, she let the mask slip completely. Fine, she said, leaning back. You want the truth? I didn't respond. She smirked. You were always a stepping stone, Ethan. A dumb, desperate man looking for love. Easy to control. Easy to manipulate. Her words were acidic. But I didn't flinch. So it was never real? I asked. She shrugged. What do you think? I let out a slow breath. I think you made a mistake. Her smirk widened. Did I? She glanced at her watch. The subtlest movement. I caught it immediately. And that's when I knew, Adrian was on his way. Outside, the gravel crunched. Headlights appeared through the trees. I checked the live camera feed from my phone. A black SUV rolled to a stop. 3 figures stepped out. Adrian. And 2 men with him, armed and scanning the perimeter. I turned back to Sophia. You brought them here? I asked, feigning surprise. Her eyes lit up with triumph. Like I said, she whispered, you were always a step behind. I nodded. We'll see. Then I grabbed the duct tape, pulled her arms behind the chair, and tied her down before she could react. She thrashed, furious. Ethan, you son of a... I pressed a strip of tape over her mouth, cutting her off. This is your mess, I said. Now you're going to watch how I clean it up. I slipped out through the back exit, moving silently along the tree line. On the live feed, Adrian's men split up. One moving toward the front door. Another circling to the side window. Perfect. I waited until the second guy stepped directly over the pressure trigger. Then I pressed the detonator. The side of the cabin exploded. A deafening blast tore through the clearing. The man near the window was thrown backward, landing in a crumpled heap. He wasn't getting up. Adrian and the remaining man froze. "Shit," Adrian hissed, scanning the darkness. "Stay alert." The second guy moved toward the back entrance, gun raised. I waited in the shadows. The second he passed my position, I struck. A quick, brutal takedown, elbow to the throat, knee to the ribs. He went down hard. I grabbed his gun, tossed it into the bushes. Then I turned to Adrian. The last one standing. I stepped into the clearing, gun raised. "Drop it, Adrian." He turned, smirked. "You really think you've won?" He drew his weapon. I fired first. Aimed low, straight into his knee. The bullet tore through flesh and bone. He collapsed, cursing, blood pooling beneath him. I kicked his gun away. "You were saying?" I asked, crouching beside him. He gritted his teeth, panting. "You have no idea what you just did." "Oh, I think I do," I said. Then I pulled out my phone. And hit send. The video footage, sent directly to Detective Collins. The sirens were already approaching in the distance. Adrian's face paled. "You son of a..." "Shut up, Adrian." By the time the police arrived, Sophia was screaming behind the tape. Adrian was bleeding on the ground. Both of them were done. Detective Collins stepped out, gun still drawn. "What the hell happened here?" I handed him my phone. "Everything you need is in there." He scrolled through the files. Nodded. Then motioned for his men. "Take them both in." Sophia kicked and screamed as they dragged her away. "Ethan. Please. You can't do this. I love you." I didn't even blink. "No, Sophia. You love what you thought you could get from me." Adrian didn't speak. Just glared at me. But as the cops shoved him into the back of a squad car, he smirked one last time. "You just made yourself a target." I stepped closer. Voice low and steady. "Let them come. I'm ready." The car door slammed shut. The sirens faded into the night. And for the first time in months, I finally felt free. I stood in the clearing, watching the taillights of the patrol cars fade into the darkness. For the first time in months, the weight of betrayal, deception, and rage finally started to lift off my shoulders. The cabin, once a quiet retreat, was now a war zone, the side of the building blown apart, the ground still smoking from the explosion. The rain had turned to a drizzle, washing away the bloodstains on the dirt. But not the memory of what happened here. I walked back inside, surveying the damage. The chair where Sophia had been tied down was overturned, the remnants of duct tape still clinging to the wood. Her burner phone lay on the floor where she must have dropped it in the chaos. I picked it up. There was one unread message. From a number I didn't recognize. I clicked it open. "Unknown number, is it done?" My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Adrian and Sophia. There was someone else involved. Someone waiting for a signal. I looked out the window. At the dark forest surrounding the cabin. At the shadows shifting between the trees. I wasn't paranoid. I was being watched. And whatever this was, it wasn't over. By the time I got back to Seattle, the sun had started to rise. The city was just waking up, oblivious to the fact that, for me, everything had changed. I parked in front of my house, the driveway still wet from the rain. For a brief moment, I hesitated. This place had once felt like home. Now, It felt like a crime scene. I stepped inside, my boots tracking mud across the hardwood floors. The silence was deafening. Sophia's perfume still lingered in the air, mixing with the faint scent of motor oil from the garage. I walked through the house, taking in everything: the kitchen counter where she had lied to my face, the bedroom where she had probably texted Adrian while I slept beside her, the closet filled with clothes I had bought her, luxury brands she had worn for another man. A sudden surge of rage hit me. But not the kind that made me want to destroy something. The kind that made me realize what needed to be done. I grabbed a duffel bag and started packing. An hour later, I was standing in my driveway, watching my life shrink down to a single bag. I heard a car pull up behind me. I turned. Detective Collins. He stepped out of his cruiser, arms crossed. "You skipping town, Carter?" he asked, nodding toward my bag. "Something like that," I admitted. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, I don't know what the hell kind of mess you just crawled out of, but you should know, Sophia and Adrian aren't the only names in my files." My jaw tightened. "Meaning?" Collins lowered his voice, stepping closer. "Meaning, Adrian wasn't working alone. We pulled his records. He had debts with some real nasty people. And the fact that you're still breathing?" He looked me dead in the eye. "That makes you a problem." I let his words sink in. I had expected this. "Let them come," I said, my voice steady. Collins chuckled, shaking his head. "You're a crazy bastard, you know that." I didn't argue. He handed me a folder. "Feds are taking Adrian. Sophia's gonna be locked up for a long time. But if you want to make sure no one comes looking for you, I'd start with this." I flipped it open. Inside, a list of names. Bank records. Offshore accounts. A network of people who had been backing Adrian, funding his operations. And now, I had all of their names. I looked back at Collins. "You sure you want to give this to me?" He shrugged. "You didn't hear it from me." Then he turned and walked back to his car. I glanced at the folder one last time. Then threw it into my duffel bag. And drove away. Some men would have let this break them. Some men would have run, looking over their shoulder for the rest of their lives. I wasn't one of those men. Sophia and Adrian thought they could use me. They thought I was just a mechanic. Just another easy mark. But now? Now, they knew the truth. And if anyone else came looking for me, they'd learn the same lesson. You don't mess with Ethan Carter. And you sure as hell don't walk away unscathed.